Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and today I'm going to be doing my complete set review for Stellar Crown. The pre-releases for Stellar Crown are this weekend, so I thought it was a great time to finally review the set and talk about all the cards in the set that I think are good, and like I said, just give a complete set review for this brand new set. It's kind of crazy that Stellar Crown is coming up very, very soon, and with pre-releases already happening this weekend, and I'm sure all of you are going to want to pick up all the brand new cards. It's a good time to talk about this new set, because of course, a lot of things are going to shake up within the format. There's a lot of brand new cards in the set that are going to make the format a bit different than the one we are playing in right now, and I cannot wait for it. I'm going to be using Justin Basil's website here. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below if you want to go check it out for yourself. And then, of course, if you're new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. I'm on the road to 17K subs, and if you want to enjoy the video, leave a like, and let me know in the comments below what is your most anticipated card within the new set. Starting things off here, we do have a Venusaur EX, which, ironically, is just a reprint of the Venusaur we already have in the format. So, nothing too crazy there. The Venusaur I already have is unfortunately not very good. But we do have a new Ellady in here, which does look a little bit more interesting. It's got that ability where when you play it from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with 90 HP or less into the active spot. So that ability is a Gust ability. Now, it only works on Pokemon with a low amount of HP, but it's good against those non-evolved Pokemon like Charmander, Pidgey, Bidoof, to name a few. It's also good into Kirlia, ironically. That does actually bring in Kirlia. It can bring in Hoot Hoot, another new card that's going to see a lot of play this week when the set does drop. So, Ladian definitely is interesting. It's really like a one-time issue, though, because without, like, Scoop Up in the format, which would have made this card 10 times better, it's a bit slower, and you only really get to use the ability like once, but it's not a bad ability. I mean, it could be good into Gardevoir. Again, being able to chase Kirlias for free is actually pretty good. So, not a bad card. We'll have to see if it can find a home. Again, just without net, though, there's not really a way to like reuse it, which is kind of the downside of playing it. Got a new Celebi here, nothing too crazy. But we do have a brand new Cradily here. Now, this is a fossil Pokemon, but it does have the ability in Mucus Buffet. Once during a turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, choose Burn, Confuse, or Poisoned, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now affected by that special condition, and it synergizes with its main attack, Marshy Winds, which for 1 grass energy does 100 damage times the amount of special conditions already on your opponent's active Pokemon. So, obviously, the ability does synergize with Cradily's attack, which is really, really nice. It does stack. You can have multiple Cradily in play, and you can use the ability as many times as you want with all the Cradilys, which is cool. This card is playable with like the Dangerous Laser A-Spec card, which I guess finally gives that card somewhat of a home. So not a bad card overall, but nothing too crazy to write home about. It's a bit slower to get into play due to it evolving from one of the fossils, which is, I guess, another downside, right? It's not a normal Pokemon that you can put into play. You know, Fossil can't be Buddy Poffin for. It's a bit harder to put multiple Cradily in play, which is probably going to be its downfall. But if somebody can figure out a way to make it work, I'm sure Cradily could be a fun one-prizer. Nothing crazy here with the new Carnivine. We got a new Rodom here, which is kind of funny against Lugia. It's got that Harvesting Dash attack, does 30 damage, and then before doing damage, discard all tools and spell energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So against Lugia, they go Iron Hand, Legacy Energy. You could just go Rodom and discard all the energy attached to them, which would be a pretty funny play to make. So, I mean, it's not a bad counter to Mew or Lugia, but other than that, I don't know how good Rodom really is, because other than that, you're really not doing much else, but it is funny to use this against Lugia, specifically if they go Iron Hands against you, which is kind of funny. So that's like the one use I can find out of Rodom. We do have a new Eldegoss here with its attack. Put this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. If you do, search deck for up to 3 cards, put them in your hand. Cool attack, getting 3 cards, obviously really good. You could always just get Iono, though, and then this attack isn't as good. And it is a switch effect, so you can go into like a Mimikyu or like an Iron Thorns or Cornerstone Ogerpon, just some kind of like annoying wall Pokemon. But other than that, I mean, just kind of mediocre, even as a funny control card. I don't know if it'll work. We do have a new Dipplin coming out. Probably not going to be the staple Dipplin you want to use within the Festival League deck. That, of course, is going to go to the Dipplin that already has Festival Lead, sorry. But this Dipplin probably won't be good with the Hydrapple, is what I meant to say. The new Hydrapple here is going to be a very strong new card within this new set. So, new Stage 2 EX does make Grass Pokemon even better than they already are. This card is great with Teomask Ogerpon. In fact, I just did a video here on the second channel where we looked at early Hydrapple decks from Japan. And, of course, it does have the ability Ripening Charge, where once during your turn, you may attach a basic Grass Energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. If you attach energy to a Pokemon this way, you heal 30 from that Pokemon. Really strong ability in a way, right? Healing can be decent, but it's just extra energy acceleration. Combine this with Tealmask Ogerpon's Teal Dance. I mean, that right there is 2 extra grass energy you can put onto your board at once, because it does synergize with Syrup Storm, which for 2 Colorless energy does 30 plus 30 more damage for each grass energy on all of your Pokemon. So, of course, the idea with Hydrapple, you put a ton of grass energy in play via Ogerpon, via Hydrapple's ability, maybe even Gardenia's Vigor, and then you just put a ton of energy in play, and then Hydrapple can hit really hard. Being a grass type isn't bad against Charizard. It does have 330 HP. Hydrapple is also very bulky for a Stage 2 EX Pokemon. Literally has the same amount of HP as Charizard, so not bad at all. New Lokix here, nothing special. We got new Toedscool, new Toedscruel, nothing too crazy. They're just kind of vanilla cards. New Rapidash doesn't do anything crazy. New Reshiram, very vanilla. A lot of vanilla cards in this set, not looking forward to that. There is a brand new Salazzle, though, which is interesting, with Sudden Burn. Your opponent discards a card from their hand. If this Pokemon evolved from Slanted during this turn, they discard 2 more cards. So, definitely an annoying attack. Combine this with Unfair Stamp, of course. You could leave your opponent with 0 cards in hand. Combine this with Zerosic Mechanicians. You can leave them with 1 card in hand. And not too bad. Now, the downside of Salazzle, again, a one-time use effect, where you really only get full value when this evolves. There's no real good way to pick it up other than with Scoop Up Cyclone. And I don't know how good these hand disruption cards really are right now. Just Pheasantipity and Mew and Bibarel are really good right now. And it's just, with those cards in the format, I just don't know if this card will ever see play. It's just kind of binder food. Like, I'd rather just play Arbok EX. If I was going to play something that does something similar, Arbok I feel like is just a better card. New Turtonator, nothing too crazy there. We do have a brand new Cinderace EX here. So the first Terra EX Pokemon to look at here. It is a fire type. Again, being a Terra Pokemon gives it that terrestrial effect. And it does have 2 attacks, both of which are definitely interesting. The first attack will probably be the main one you use for 1 fire and 2 colorless energy. It does 280 damage, and then during your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Flare Strike. So you get to hit pretty hard. 280 damage is a lot of damage. That's knocking out Regidrago and Palkia V-Star, which are going to be pretty popular when the set does come out. Being a fire Pokemon is nice. It does synergize with Magma Basin. You can play this with Armor Rouge. It does work with Double Turbo also. You can go Fire Double Turbo to power it up. Maybe just put a Choice Belt on it. Same thing, basically. Not a bad first attack. And then the second attack, if you can find a way to build it up, does do 180 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Good snipe attack. You can knock out Squawkabilly, Mew, and Lumineon with it, which isn't too shabby. Definitely a pretty strong Stage 2 Pokemon. I don't think it's, like, super competitive and playable, like, nothing crazy, but it's not a bad attacker. It does a nice chunk of damage. It's beefy, having 320 HP. Downside is it's a Stage 2, but does have good synergy with some of the fire cards within the format already. And does do a ton of damage. Enough damage, actually, to one-shot some of the big Pokemon in the format. We got Blastoise here. Reprint of the Blastoise EX we already have. A card that is bordering on potentially playable, but just never quite reaches it. And who knows, maybe somebody will figure out a way to make Blastoise work. But yeah, we have another Blastoise here coming out, much like the Venusaur in the set. We do have a brand new Lapras EX here, a water-type terrestrial Pokemon with the attack Power Splash for 1 water. Does 40 damage for each energy on this Pokemon. So you can play this with Baxcalibur, load it up with water energy, and then hit really hard. It doesn't discard the energy, so keep in mind the effect of not discarding the energy does come in handy, because it doesn't mean that your board is as fragile where your opponent can, like, go after Bibarel or Baxcalibur in a single turn, and it can get a little awkward from there. But with Lapras, you keep the energy on, so your opponent needs to attack the Lapras and kind of deal with it. And then you have its other attack. Not the main attack, the other attack here, the Terrestrial attack, which is interesting if you can build it up. It does have that attack where you can look at the top 20 cards of your deck and attach any number of energy you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. If you can pull this attack off quickly, then this attack can build up so many Pokemon, and it could actually just enhance your board greatly. The downside is the amount of energy you need. I mean, looking at Lapras here, you need a Water, a Psychic, and a Metal. Pretty awkward attack cost, but again, if you can figure out a way to build up this Lapras in a super fast manner, you could actually build up your entire board. I mean, 20 cards is nuts. I mean, maybe by that point, too, you have like 30 cards, 40-ish, 35-ish cards in the deck. Pretty good chance you're going to find most of your energy, and you could just build up your entire board, and you don't have to worry about energy acceleration for the rest of the game, but it's just really tricky to get to that point. But it's an interesting EX nonetheless. New Azumarill here isn't too crazy. We got a new Lumineon, nothing too crazy either. New Caracosta here, another fossil Pokemon. Your opponent's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active evolved Pokemon. So doing more damage to evolution Pokemon isn't bad. Obviously, evolutions, there's a few of them in the format, like Charizard, Gardevoir, stuff like that. but it is a bit clunky to get Caracosta into play because, again, it's a fossil stage 2, so it's not a normal stage 2. You can't just buddy pop it out like Tirtugas, so it's a bit more awkward to put this guy into play, but overall, I mean, the ability is nice. It can stack. It looks like you can put multiple Caracosta in play to do even more damage, but it's just an awkward card. I'm not sure how good it is. I don't even know, like, the best partner for this card either. Like, I don't know any Pokemon that would really benefit from this and be worth trying to fit the consistency of fossils in your deck. We have a Greninja EX, another Greninja EX here. Once again, a pretty vanilla card. I mean, it's coming from a Battle Academy deck, which are literally just made up of, like, super vanilla cards. I will say this, though. The Frogadier... Never mind, the Frogadier says something different than what it actually says on the artwork. Okay, never mind. But anyways, the new Greninja is nothing too crazy. I don't think you'd even play this in the Greninja EX deck. It's just... The promo one is probably better than this one, right? It does 100 damage. You flip a coin of heads, you do 100 more damage. Pretty bad. I mean, 100 damage is nothing. You maybe do 200 damage. I mean, that's still not even enough to KO most big basics. So, like, this card's trash. Definitely a pretty bad card for sure. Again, it's just like a vanilla Pokemon from a vanilla Battle Academy kit where they just print vanilla cards. The new Crabominable is where things get interesting, though. With its ability Prep Work, attacks used by his Pokemon cost 1 colorless free Kofu card in your discard pile. Now, Kofu's interesting because there's a couple other Pokemon in the set that actually do kind of similar things. And the attack does have the effect of needing 5 energy. However, with all 4 Kofu in the discard pile, this attack can do 250 damage for a single water energy, which is pretty solid. I mean, 250 is good numbers. Again, with Choice Belt, you're not going to have those big V-Star Pokemon. You're carrying big basics. Not a bad card. The question is how are you going to discard Kofu? If you can find a good way to discard the Kofus efficiently, this could actually be a pretty cool one-prize attacking deck. And there's another card we're going to look at very soon that also synergizes with Kofu to make like a Kofu archetype. And then, of course, we'll get to Kofu and what it does later. New Dreadnought here is actually really interesting, too. It's got that ability, Iron Defense Shell, where you prevent all damage on this Pokemon by your opponent's attacks if the damage is 200 damage or more. There are some Pokemon in the format that literally are limited to only being able to do 200 damage or more, and that could be pretty spicy. This does mean Dreadnought is a little bit harder to KO. Maybe sometimes you're forced to 2-hit KO it, depending on the attacker. Like Pidgeot EX, for example, can attack it, but it only does 120, whereas Charizard, if they take a prize, or if you take a prize, then they're only doing 210, and then they can't touch Dreadnought. So different things can happen with this card. It does have an attack Hard Crunch, which for 3 colorless energy does 80 damage, and if your opponent's active already has damage on it, you do 80 more damage. Maybe the best way to play it is with Dusknoir and Dusclops. So if you're playing against like Charizard, for example, you force him to take a prize card, so then Charizard cannot damage Dreadnought at all, and then they have to kind of find an alternative way to deal with it. That could be the spicy way to play this card. It does work with Reversal Energy too, being an evolution that requires 3 colorless energy. I don't think this card is bad at all. I definitely think it's decent. Now here's the other Kofu card. We got the new Veluza here with Prep Work, where of course attacks used by it gonna require 1 colorless more for each Kofu in the discard pile, like that Crabominable. And the attack Sonic Edge for 4 colorless energy does 110 damage, and it isn't affected by any effects on the opponent's active Pokemon. I think this shreds to like Ogerpon, which is cool, Cornerstone Ogerpon, which is nice. So decent card. It'll go decently with the Crabominable, whereas like if you're not going Crabominable, you're probably just going Veluza, and 110 times 2 is 220, so you're two-shotting most stuff. You can play Articuno with it too from Pokemon Go to hit 120 damage if you ever want to maybe do a little bit more damage and fix some of the math. So not a bad card for sure in the Kofu deck. New Electivire here, nothing crazy. I mean, Lightning Strike, 220 damage, and then during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. So nothing or your Pokemon, sorry, can't attack, which is even more grief. Even the Pokemon that come into play. So I don't think you'd ever want to use Electivire. So pretty bad card for sure. Got a new Lantern here. Interesting first attack, Perplexing Flash. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused, but you put 8 damage counters on it instead of 3 for the special condition. That means if your opponent tries to attack under Confusion and they happen to flip tails, they're going to take 80 damage instead of 30, which is interesting. Confusion is not really the greatest special condition, though. I mean, it is somewhat useful in Gardevoir. That's the only deck that uses Confusion and gets away with it. That's because Gardevoir plays like Unfair Stamp and Heavy Iono. Like, Iono Monkey Dory is a deadly combo, but I don't know if Lantern's that good, to be honest with you. It's kind of niche. It's not going to be playable in Gardevoir, like, just kind of mediocre, but could be a fun, like, troll deck if you can figure out, like, a way to make, like, maybe Lantern Spidops or something could be kind of funny. That's, like, the best way I can see it. Now, we got this new Joltik here, which is kind of insane. Like, this card is worth talking about alone, let alone the Galvantula we're going to look at. It's got the attack Battery Charge for 1 colorless energy, search attack for up to 2 basic grass and basic light energy, and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. That is an insane attack. That gets 4 energy in play in a single turn. In fact, that builds up an Iron Hands EX in a single turn, which is just nuts. And that is a really good card. This card alone could see play, let alone working with the brand new Galvantula EX. So once again, in my latest video, I did look at Galvantula decklist early from Japan. So if you want to see some early Galvantula decks, you can check out my video where I looked at them. But Galvantula EX does have two pretty decent attacks. You got the first attack, does 110 damage for Lightning and a Colorless. If your opponent's active is an EX or V, you do 110 more damage. So you do a nice clean 220 damage, not bad. And then your other attack, I think this is the one everyone's going to try to make work, is the Galvantula's terrestrial attack. Does 180 damage. You discard all energy from the Galvantula, but during your opponent's next turn, they cannot play items. Item locking is really strong, and you're also doing a ton of damage at that. So cards like Bayonet, Bayonet does 30 damage. It's not a lot of damage to do. Bayonet can be countered if your opponent can just attack you, and you don't really care about taking 30 item locks. So Galvantula, 180 item lock is way more valuable. That can knock stuff out. That can basically two-shot like anything in the format. The way to make Galvantula work, however, is, well, how are you going to build it up? You can play some sneaky combos. We've seen it with Reggies. Joltik can build it up, obviously. And, of course, you can play it within Blissey, Happy Trumpet. It's been like, or Glass Trumpet's been the other way I've seen Galvantula work. So there are some niche ways to make it work. And I think the way you're going to build Galvantula is going to be around that item lock attack. It's just a very powerful attack if you can consistently do it every single turn. New Charge Bug, it does have that ability, or attack, sorry, where it lets you get 3 Charge Bug onto your bench. So kind of like the Water Duplicates effect we're seeing on Mirage Step, Curly, and stuff. Not a bad attack. Depends on what Vigavolt from the format. We do at least have a brand new Vigavolt here, but it's unfortunately a little mid. It does 1 for 90, and then you switch it with a bench Lightning Pokemon. So it can't even work with like Mimikyu or Ogerpon. You got to switch into like Iron Thorns or something. But then you have the other attack for 4 energy, does a nice clean 240 damage. Mediocre. I think there's other Vigavolts in the format that are just obviously better than this Vigavolt. New Togedemaru here. Shocking Chance does 30 damage. If you have exactly 1 prize remaining, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. So this could be very good at the end of the game, especially with Iono. You can Iono your opponent to 1 card and then paralyze them. A lot of the time that will usually stick. So we'll have to see if this card could be used as like a funny little comeback card. It only really works though if you're not going 2-2-2 the entire game. So your opponent needs to at least knock out a 1 prizer at some point in the match to get full value out of this card. Or maybe you play it with like Dusknoir and Dusclops, and then you can manipulate the prize trait that way. So we'll have to see if it works in like a lightning kind of deck for like comeback material. New Zeraora here does 20 damage, and then 20 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. I mean, not a bad lightning attacker. Actually, not a bad counter to Palkia V-Star. Palkia V-Star fills up its bench, and then Zeraora can punish it. Maybe this will see play within Lost Zone decks if Lost Zone can continue to, stay in the format without Kyurem being super overbearing. Then maybe Zeraora could be a sneaky partner within Lost Box over Raikou, because it's a pretty good counter to Palkia V-Star. And I guess Lugia, but Lugia can play around it a bit easier, I think. New Slowking here is very interesting. There's been a bit of hype with this card with Gardevoir. Due to that first attack, Inspirational Challenge for a Psychic and a Colorless Energy, discard the top card of your deck. If that card is a Pokemon without a rule box, you choose one of that Pokemon's attacks and use it as his attack. This gives you some pretty interesting options to work with. One of the main things I've seen Slowking use is Onix. I think it was Onix. Yeah, so we'll have to see on that one. Onix Slowking could be kind of funny. You put damage on it with Gardevoir, and then you use Slowking, and you discard the Onix. Onix does 50 for each damage counter on it. Slowking copies it. That's the combo. You play as like Academy at Night to guarantee it and stuff like that. Kind of funny stuff. So kind of a niche card, but kind of cool too. I mean, there's a lot of options with this card, and I'm sure I'll cook up some fun videos with Slowking. Cannot wait for that one. New Mewtwo, very vanilla card, unplayable. We do have a brand new Drift Blim here, which is actually also playable. It's got that Everyone Explode Now attack, similar to an old Fortress we used to have back from Undaunted, I think it was, back in the Heart Gold era. It does have the attack Everyone Explode Now, like I said, for a single Psychic Energy, does 50 damage for each of your Drifloon and Driftblim you have in play. However, you do have to do 30 damage to each of your Drifloon and Driftblim in play. So ironically enough, this actually really is synergizing nicely with the other Drifloon from Scarlet Violet that does 30 damage for each damage counter on it. So this could be a fun 1-prize deck. Not sure how good it'll be, but it is a fun idea. Drifblim can do decent damage for 1 energy. It's not bad at all. So definitely a pretty fun card, and definitely excited to try it out as like a fun 1-prize meme deck. We got a new Comfey. Obviously, nowhere near as good as Flower Set Comfey, surely. We got a new Alcremie, Colorful Sweets for 1 colorless energy, Search Jack for up to 5 Pokemon of the same type as any basic energy attached to this Pokemon, reveal them and put them in your hand. It's an interesting idea. It's a little too clunky, though, so I don't know how good this Alcremie really is. Cool attack, though. Very unique attack. A lot of the Alcremies we've gotten have been, like, unique at the very least. Got a new Dash Bun EX here. So, an interesting card with an ability, Full Belly Time. When you play it from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, during your turn, you may heal all damage from each of your evolution Pokemon. However, you have to then discard all the energy from the Pokemon that got healed by the ability. So kind of awkward in a way where it's like, okay, you can heal everything, but you have to discard the energy. There are some Pokemon evolutions that don't mind this, though, and I'm sure that's how this card is going to see play. It's a very similar card to an old Blissey Prime that used to be in the format, and that card did see some niche success, too. It was very good in the Truth, even though I don't know if you could replicate the Truth in this format. And then its other attack, Wonder Shine, does 130 damage, and then confuses the opponent's active. Not a bad attack, does work for 2 colors, so you can technically build it up if you build it in like any deck. So cool card. We'll have to see if somebody figures out a way to make this card work, because there is some potential. The ability is good. You just have to find a way to be able to put the energy back onto the Pokemon, obviously. New One Prize Pather, obviously pretty unplayable. We got a new Iron Boulder here. So a single prize Iron Boulder future card here with the attack Adjustable Horn for Psychic and Colorless. Does 170 damage. If you do not have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, the attack does nothing. So you have to match your opponent's hand size. Now keep in mind this card does work with a few cards like Judge, which can limit the opponent's hand, but also make you have the same hand. Even sometimes you can Iono your opponent and match their hand. There are ways you can make this card work. You can boost the damage to make it actually hit decent numbers with like Iron Crown and Future Booster Capsule. Only needing 2 energy is decent too. That's a pretty cost-efficient attack. So not a bad single prizer for future decks. We'll have to see if that catches on if future decks can see any more play. New Marowak here is interesting. It's got the attack Bone Revenge, so 60 damage, and if any of your bench Cubone have any damage on them, do 120 more damage. So you can do 180, technically 160 if you make this work with a double turbo energy. You can easily get damage on Cubone with like Gape Jaw Bog or whatever. So cool card. It doesn't do enough damage though, which is kind of my issue because of double turbo. Even with double turbo, it's not that good. New Rhyperior line is interesting. Got Wide Wall. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, whenever your opponent plays a supporter from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to your Pokemon in play. This card does block stuff like Boss. It can also block niche things like Giovanni's Charisma, which is kind of funny. Nothing crazy, though. It does have to be in the active spot. Though I will say, though, it does have the attack Drill Run, does 180 damage. You discard energy from your opponent's active. That could be kind of annoying to deal with. So I don't know, if somebody can make this card work, it is kind of a nice block to, like, Boss. It protects your bench, so theoretically, you could bench stuff like Pheasantipede and whatnot, and it's like, well, you don't have to worry about them getting bossed as much, because Rhyperior's in the active spot, protecting you from getting bossed. I have to, like, use Prime Catcher Bundle or something sneaky to get around it, which is kind of cool. New Medicham here isn't too good, but we do have a new Medicham EX, however, which is decent. It's got that first attack Shiatsu, which puts damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until their main HP is 50. It's not as good as like the other ones that put it down to 10 HP, or put like Serena EX, which just puts them down to 30 HP. So kind of an awkward attack because the damage isn't enough, but somebody can maybe figure out a cool way to make this card decent. It does work with a double turbo, so it does work for 1 energy attachment, technically speaking, which is like the benefit of this card. New Lucario EX, very vanilla card. Again, it came from Battle Academy deck. New Menshao here. Gale Spin does 30 damage. If your opponent has 5 or fewer cards in their hand, you get to do 90 damage. Kind of mediocre. Not very good either. New Diancie here. Interesting first attack here. Diffuse Reflection does 40 damage for each special energy on your opponent's Pokemon. So it's actually not bad against Lugia, kind of like that Mo Rodon we looked at earlier. This could be another card that could be kind of annoying for Lugia to deal with. This could one-shot Iron Hands, technically speaking, because they need 4 energy to KO it, and those are going to be 4 special energy. So could be a fun little card to play against Lugia. Could be really good counter like Weird Ear. Could one-shot a Cinchino for a 1-prizer. There are actually some decent uses you get out of this for the Lugia matchup. Hey, if there's any deck that struggles against Lugia, maybe they can squeeze a couple Diancie in the deck and help fix the matchup. We got the Phalanx here. Phalanx has had interesting cards. Unfortunately, I don't think this one is very interesting. It's got Simultaneous Attack, doing 30 damage. If this Pokemon uses Link Formation during your last turn, you do 90 more damage. I mean, 120 damage with Link Formation not being very good, just getting 2 Pokemon in play and having only 110 HP makes this card kind of bad. It looks like we're finally getting the Gargantual EX. I still don't even know how to pronounce that, but this card has been on hold for a while now. I'm surprised it's taken this long to come out. It's basically like a stronger Goodra in a way. It's got the ability Assault Body, where it can't be affected by special conditions. Got a whopping 340 HP, and then you got the attack Block Hammer for fighting in 2 colors energy. Does 170 damage, not bad damage output. And then during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 60 less damage from attacks, effectively giving this thing 400 HP, because your opponent has to do 400 damage if they want to one-shot you. Not bad. You can play this with Hero's Cape if you want. A lot of cool combos you can do. You can play this with Rock Chestplate. Lake Acuity works with it. I'm finally happy to say this card might be coming out in this new set, it looks like. Again, this card has been on hold for so long. It was this card in Scovillain, which took a while to come out. Scovillain finally came out eventually, but this card took forever, and it looks like we're finally getting it, which makes me very happy. New Radon here does 50 damage if your opponent active is an EX, does 70 more damage, so 120 damage. Not too sure how relevant that's going to be for 2 fighting. Maybe fighting colors would have been a little bit better. Swalla, it's got Munching Mouth for a dark energy, does 10 damage. If this Pokemon has more energy attached to it than your opponent's active Pokemon, you do 160 more damage. So you can do 170 for 1 energy potentially, or not. That's the problem. So it depends really how you're going to play this card. I guess it does one-shot Squawkabilly on the bench, technically. Squawkabilly's on the bench with no energy on it. This thing can just go 1 energy knockout, which is kind of funny. So there's like some niche uses you get out of this, but nothing too like good. Pangoro's not very good. New Grimmsnarl here. It's kind of mediocre too. Per active clutch, switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Your opponent chooses a new active Pokemon and then does 160 to the new Pokemon. I mean, it's like okay. Your opponent gets to choose, which is kind of the issue. I guess if their bench is like very awkward, this could be powerful, but I can't really see this being like anything too crazy, right? The other attack too, just 160, discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, and not very good. Maybe this card will see play when Marnie's Grimmsnarl comes out, if there's like some combo you can pull off of this, who knows. New Jirachi. Attach-based energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon, pretty bad. We do have a new Clink here coming out, which is kind of funny because it's pretty good against Shenpao. It's got Emergency Spin. Once during your turn, this Pokemon is in your hand and your opponent has a Stage 2 Pokemon in play, aka Baxcalibur, you may put this Pokemon onto your bench. So, yeah, if you're playing a Shenpao, this card is nuts because then you can use Hypersonic Beam for a double turbo energy and do 130 damage. You have to discard all energy from it, but you do 110 damage to a Shenpao with a double turbo on, and you one-hit KO it, and you don't have to worry about rare candy in this card into play. So it is a pretty funny card. Its damage output is like mediocre in any other situation where you'll use it for the ability, but against Shenpao, it's kind of funny. Don't know how good it'll be. It depends really if Shenpao like stays popular. Who knows? But it's a pretty funny card nonetheless against Shenpao. New Melmetal, remodeling Axe here. Does 250 damage before doing damage. Discard all tools from this Pokemon. And then if you can't, it does nothing. 250, though, isn't bad. You have to discard the tools, though, so unfortunately, it looks like you have to discard Choice Belt because it says about 4 doing damage, so can't even one-shot V-Stars. Might have to say pass on this one. We do have another new Melmetal EX coming out. Unfortunately, this card is also pretty bad. It's basically the same thing as Greninja. 4 energy, does 100 damage, flip 2 coins, does 100 for each heads. Bro, really? You couldn't make it 3 coin flips for 4 energy? Come on. This card is garbage. I don't even know if I would do a Bad Deck Friday video on it. That's how bad it is. We got a new Arc Radon here with the ability Steel Bridge. Each of your Pokemon that has any metal energy attached to it has no retreat cost. Not a bad ability. Giving you free retreat is also very good. Unfortunately, though, it's just like, It's a Stage 1 Pokemon. I don't know if there's any deck out there that gets value out of it. Like, maybe Dialga could play this. That could be, like, the only deck I could see that maybe this would benefit. For the time being, anyways. New Revrim's Vanilla. We got a new Orthworm EX, which is kind of cute. It's got that Kerpow Return ability. When this Pokemon is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, even if it's knocked out, you put 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon for each metal energy on it. Now, if you're playing this with Metang and you put, like, 4 energy on it, the attacking Pokemon takes, like, 80 damage in return, which is nuts. So this card could be a kind of an annoying card to want to attack. The Rock Tomb attack does 150 for 4 colorless energy, and then during the opponent's next turn, that Pokemon can't retreat. Not a bad card. I mean, it's decent. Pretty fun card with Melmetal, and that's going to be the main way I think people are going to play the Orthworm EX. New Raging Bolt here. This card could be good within the Raging Bolt deck. I don't know about Ancient Box, but Raging Bolt could play it. It's got Raging Thunderstorm. This attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy on this Pokemon. So that's like the main thing I think you're going to use it for. You just kind of put a bunch of energy on it. You can Snipe Sling for 90. You can pick off Curlias in some scenarios, pick off Hoot Hoots, whatever the case may be. You're just picking stuff off, which is kind of the goal with the Raging Bolt, which does make it kind of decent. And potentially Raging Bolt is better than Sandy Shocks, though I'm not too sure. Sandy Shocks might just overall be better, but Bolt is a little bit more versatile in that regards because it does snipe the bench. Now, here's where things get really interesting. We got a brand new Hoot Hoot and Noctowl. The new Noctowl is very similar to the old Shady Dealings in Teleon. It's got the ability Jewel Hunt. When you play it, from your hand to evolve on your Pokemon during your turn. If you have any Terra Pokemon in play, you may search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, reveal them, and put them in your hand. Very strong ability. You know, this works with all the Terras like Charizard, TMS Gogurpon, and of course Tropos EX being another big one. And that ability is nuts. 2 trainers for free is insane. That gets you supporters. You can get like Cologne Prime Catcher, which is really good in Palkia. This card is insane. It's going to be a brand new Dronjin, and yeah, get ready to see Noctowl Dronjin. It's definitely a card that at your pre-release, you're going to want to pick up a couple copies of these because it is that good of a card, and we'll see a lot of play. New Fan Rodom, another big card. Actually, Boulon and Fan Rodom here back-to-back are very good cards for Tropicos. Got Fan Call once you're in turn. Once you're in your first turn, you may search deck for up to 3 colors Pokemon with 100 HP or less, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Very strong ability because you can get a ton of Pokemon into play when you find this Rodom, and it lets you set up pretty nicely. I mean, you can get stuff like Boulon, you get your Hoots. It's basically the concept of the Fan Rodom, and it really is nice because you get all these Pokemon which synergize nicely in the Tropicos EX deck due to the new stadium we're getting, which needs to have Pokemon to put into play, and Rodom can find a lot of them. So we'll talk about that very soon. New Boulon here is also kind of crazy. Curly Wall, if you have any other Boulon in play, your basic colors Pokemon take 60 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. 60 less damage is kind of insane. Now, it doesn't stack. You can't have 4 Boulon in play. That would be a little ridiculous. But even just 60 damage less is nuts. I mean, all the bulky colors basic Pokemon, you know, could be nice. I mean, make your own Boulon even bulkier. You kind of protect a lot of your Hoots, which is nice too, from snipe attacks. And really, really good with Tropicos EX, as it is a basic Pokemon. And we're going to get Tropicos in just a sec. New Tornadus isn't anything too crazy, but it looks like we are getting closer to Tropicos. We got new Talonflame, nothing too crazy either. We got double. Apparently, there's a lot of colorless Pokemon in this set. Okay, there's way more than I thought. All right, here we go. We got the Tropicos EX. This is the big new EX card from the new set. It's got the attack Unified Beatdown. Does 30 damage for 2 colorless energy. If you go second, you can't use the attack during your first turn. So they're trying to prevent you from like donking your opponent, but it does 30 damage for each of your bench Pokemon. Now this will synergize very nicely with a brand new Stadium card we are going to be getting that will let you bench up to 8 Pokemon. Even the other attack is really good. If you can build up Crown Opal with Glass Trumpet, another card we're going to talk about very soon, does 180 damage during your opponent's next turn. Prevent all damage on this Pokemon by attacks from basic non-colorless Pokemon. This will be really good against stuff like Maridon and Raging Bolt. All these big basic decks, other than Roaring Moon, which, you know, can Frenzy Gouge you, will struggle into Tropicos. So Tropicos is going to be a brand new archetype. This could be really good with Palkia V-Star. It's a great Terrestrial Pokemon you can have on your bench for some of these cool Terrestrial cards we're going to talk about in just a sec. And yeah, Tropicos looks like it's going to be a brand new archetype. It's got 230 HP, so it's kind of bulky. You have Boulon, which can effectively give it 290 HP with that boost from the Boulon's ability. So you can make yourself a pretty bulky Tropicos deck. And again, this is a big card you do want to try to get your hands on from this new set. We got the new fossil cards, which will obviously go with like Caracosta and stuff. Again, you can't find them with like Poth or anything. You play it down as if it were a 60 HP basic colorless Pokemon, and you can anytime discard it from play. And if this card is in the active spot, your opponent's basic Pokemon's attacks cost a colorless more, which is kind of cool, I guess. So it can kind of slow your opponent down, which is kind of cool. And then the effect of the anti-cover one prevents it. Effects of attacks prevented from it, so that's good. You prevent Dragapult, it looks like, which is decent, so you can kind of protect your own guy. But here's where things are crazy. Of course, the brand new Stadium, arguably the best card in the set, I'm going to be honest with you, is Area 0 Under Depths, the Skyfield 2.0. If a player has a Terra Pokemon in play, they can bench up to 8 Pokemon. Of course, when this card gets discarded from play, or a Terra Pokemon is removed from play, and there's no other ones in play, then this Stadium immediately gets reverted, and you have to discard Pokemon until you have 5 on your bench. But yeah, this card is pretty insane, I'm not going to lie. This is nuts. This is really good with Tropicos, which already does 30 damage for each of your bench Pokemon. But this card also breaks Palkia V-Star, because now Palkia V-Star can hit even higher numbers with Subspace. Well, on top of that, this could be good in niche combos like the Reggie combo. You can bench all 6 Reggies, and then use Regigigas to build up other Pokemon, because you can bench more than 6 Pokemon. It's just... or put more than 5 Pokemon on your bench for Regigigas, which is nuts, yeah. This card is insane. Easily the best card in the new set, in my opinion, and I think this card is a must-have. If you can get a playset of these, you have to get a playset. It is by far and away the best card in the new set. It is such a good card. Another card that definitely looks interesting, especially for Charizard, is Brier. You can play this card only if your opponent has exactly 2 prizes remaining, and until the end of this turn, if your opponent's active is knocked out by damage from one of your Terra Pokemon's attack, you take 1 more prize card. So really good in Charizard. It is niche, though, because they do have to be on 2 prizes remaining, but Charizard already plays stuff like Dusknoir, which can manipulate the prize trade to actually make this card active, which is kind of the scary thing, and it makes Charizard be able to take an extra prize. Giving Charizard the effect of Iron Hands as Ampy very much is a little silly. Of course, it works with all the other Terra Pokemon, too, like Tropicos, Dragapult, stuff like that, Ogerpon, but definitely, I think the main use of this card will be within Charizard, especially when that deck can already manipulate the prize trade already with Dusclops. So, pretty scary card. It honestly could set up a lot of checkmate combos within Dusclops Charizard. So, kind of scary for sure. Crispin's also a decent new card. Search deck for up to 2 basic energies. of different types, reveal them, put to your opponent. You put one in your hand, and then you put the other energy onto one of your Pokemon. So it's a great way to build up your Pokemon. Also, it does help build up the terrestrial attacks on like Lapras and Galvantula and Terapagos. That's like the main use this card is going to have, obviously. So not a bad card. It does accelerate energy, which is nice. So the fact that it does that is really cool, because you can, of course, just then attach the other energy from your hand you grabbed out of the deck. Deluxe Bomb here, the first ace spec of the set. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, even if it's knocked out, you put 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. I mean, it's okay. Obviously, Lost Vacuum and Jamming Tower do kind of go burr against this card. It's kind of a weak ace spec. It's not the worst ace spec, but it's not the best ace spec. There are Pokemon that already have these type of attacks, like Lycanroc EX. I know there's another one we looked at earlier that has something similar when it gets attacked. But overall, Deluxe Bomb, unfortunately, just isn't very good. Yeah, just kind of gets countered easily. There's just better ace specs. Glass Trumpet, though, is another fantastic new card. You can only play this Pokemon, or you can only play this card if you have a Terra Pokemon in play. Choose up to 2 of your bench colorless Pokemon, attach basic energy from your discard pile to each of them. Really strong effect. You can build up your Tropagos, which can build up the effect of its attack cost. You can put this energy onto Blissey EX. That's been like the main one I've seen Glass Trumpet be used for, is with Blissey EX, because Blissey's got that happy switch ability, which moves energy around. Glass Trumpet 2 energy into play, Blissey the energy to a Pokemon. It kind of cracked, so this card is very good with Blissey, good with Tropicos. Pretty good card. Another card you probably want to pick up a playset of, especially when like more colorless Pokemon eventually come out. This card could get a lot stronger. Another new ace spec here, which is very interesting, especially for the Stage 2 decks like Charizard. Grand Tree. Once during each player's turn, that player may search your deck for a Stage 1 Pokemon that evolves from one of their basic Pokemon in play and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. If that Pokemon is now Stage 1, you can then also search your deck for a Stage 2 and then evolve it into that Pokemon. However, you can't play this. You can't use the effect of this card during your first turn or the turn that base Pokemon was put into play. So you can't just bench a Charmander and then immediately turn to a Charizard out of nowhere. You gotta wait a turn, which does help balance this card. Very strong Stadium, though. Effectively with Charizard, you can go Charmander, Charmeleon, Pidgeotto in a single turn, and this is also not bad against like TM Devo, because like having the Stage 1 makes you less susceptible to like Devo sometimes. So really good ace spec, I think. Definitely an underrated card. There's a lot of niche uses for it. It's good in just any Stage 2 deck. I don't think Gardevoir is going to play it, but I can definitely see a deck like Charizard 100% playing this card, even though there are other better ace specs. That's like the thing that rivals it, is there's just better ace specs, but definitely a very powerful card that I think will see some play, especially if we keep getting Stage 2 Pokemon that are really strong, right? That's the thing. New Gravity Stone here, new tool. If the Pokemon this card's attached to is in the active spot, their tree cost of both active Pokemon is colorless more. Kind of a funny tool card with Spidops EX. Other than that, it's like okay. I don't think it'll see play with much, to be honest with you, but it's funny with like Spidops. Here's Kofu. So like I said, works with Crabominable and Veluza. It's got the effect you put 2 cards from your hand to the bottom of your deck in any order, and then you draw 4 cards. That's basically what it does, just a draw supporter. Not bad. I mean, sometimes you just have 2 dead cards you don't want. Maybe you have cards in your hand that you don't want to see, because maybe you want to do some discard combo thing and you want to put them on the bottom of the deck. So decent card to play within the Kofu deck, obviously, because it's Kofu. You need it, right? So kind of a funny card. Not terrible, though. It's not like unplayable. It does have its uses, so not bad at all. You got Lacy. Shuffle your hand in your deck, draw 4 cards. If your opponent has 3 or fewer prizes remaining, draw 8 instead. Honestly, not a bad draw supporter either in the late game. Now, late game draw supporters tend to be Iono and then Research, but Lacy coming into the mix isn't bad either. I mean, drawing 8 cards is a lot. If you're looking for a specific combo of cards, or you're looking for one specific card, drawing 8 cards is a lot of cards. That can let you see quite a few outs to what you want to pull off. Now, this card is also kind of rivaled by like maybe stuff like Hassle, again, Research being another one. But it's not bad at all. Like, plays with Pheasantipity, bro, and ooh, you're seeing 11 new cards. That's pretty gas, I'm just saying. So, I like this card. Keep an eye on it. Maybe get a couple of them before the set comes out. Papaa Berry, got some berry cards coming out here. Whenever this Pokemon this card is attached to is damaged by an attack from your opponent's fire Pokemon, this Pokemon takes 60 less damage from an attack, then you have to discard it. Could be fun against Radiant Charizard, but there's really not that many other fire Pokemon. I guess maybe if Cinderace picks up play, maybe this will be good against Cinderace too. And then we got Papaa Berry. Whenever the Pokemon this card is attached to, damage is reduced by the Psychic Pokemon by 60 damage. So instead of Fire Pokemon, it's Psychic Pokemon. A little bit better because Psychic Pokemon are a lot stronger. Obviously, Gardevoir EX being a big one, Mew EX, stuff like that. Not a bad card either. So I think Papaa Berry is actually a lot stronger than Papaa Berry. It really depends on how popular Psychic decks are. But hey, you know what? In a year's time, if there's a bunch of big Psychic Pokemon running the format, card might see some play, even though Jamming Tower exists, which kind of cancels out. Finally, the last card in the set, Sparkling Crystal, which is a new ace spec. Attacks used by the Terra Pokemon this card is attached to cost 1 energy less of its type. Now, this is pretty broken with Dragapult EX because you can put on a Dragapult and you only need either like 1 Psychic or 1 Fire to use the attack. Or it works with any Terra Pokemon. I mean, you're probably not going to use it with Charizard, but not a bad card. For any Terra deck that wants to do some crazy Terra combo, this card has got your back. A very interesting new ace spec. It's definitely rivaled by other powerful ace specs. That's the issue with it. But it depends if the Terra Pokemon has a good means of energy acceleration, then maybe this card will see play. It is a tool card, I think, right? Yeah, it's a tool card, which is huge. So you can search with Arvin. Sparkling Crystal, definitely a pretty powerful card. Again, rivaled by their powerful ace specs, which is the one thing holding it back, but it's definitely not a bad card at all. But there you go, folks. That is my complete set review of Stellar Crown. Pretty stellar set. There's actually a decent amount of new cards. I think Area 0 Underdefs is the big one that's going to really shake up the game quite a bit when it comes out. Tropicos, Glass Trumpet, Grand Tree, stuff like that are all going to be big too. So definitely keep your eye on some of these new cards. I would say some of the best cards to pick up at pre-release. Try to get yourself some Tropicoses, maybe get some Galvantulas, Joltik, stuff like that. Definitely get Glass Trumpet and Area 0 Underdefs as a playset 100%. And try to pick up the ace specs if you can, other than Deluxe Bomb. You can always assure that card probably won't be very good. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Help me in the road to reaching 17K subs. I'll leave a link to Justin Basil's site down below for this video. And yeah, that'll be for me. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you on another video very soon here on the second channel. Bye-bye.